So now to my task as facilitator to this last panel and the important partners that we have around the table, the financial institutions and foundations, the international donors. They are critical players for us. They have been up until now, but also for the aftermath. And the framing questions that we want to share with you is, well, provide some feedback on what you have heard. I'm sure that many of the things that have been shared are not new, but the urgency in the voices of the mayors, I think is very, very important, and very hard realities like the one that have been shared from Uganda should make us shift in some way, and I hope you can share that with us. And then we all know you have your own instruments for financing, and I am wondering how are those going to be impacted for now, for the crisis, but also for the aftermath. And all of that you will need to do in not more than 5 minutes presentation. So let's go with it. I'm going to introduce first the head of the Urban Development Planning and Housing Department of the French Development Agency. AFD is a very critical partner, has always been for United Cities and local governments, for UN Habitat and many others in the room, because from the French government, we've always had a lot of support for local and regional governments, also internationally. So I am happy to give the floor to Mr. Frédéric Audras. I don't see him, but I hope he's connected. Are you there? Maybe not. Well, I hope I get.
Yes, I'm there.
You are. Oh, yeah. Very good. Yeah. The floor is yours, Frédéric.
Thank you. I really apologize because I've prepared something very quickly, so it will be in French, but I know that you have translators. So, pour nous, je dirais, l'Agence française de développement, la particularité que nous avons, c'est que nous travaillons en direct avec les collectivités locales étrangères. Nous les finançons directement et nous finançons également les collectivités locales françaises dans ce que nous appelons l'outre-mer français, dans le Pacifique, l'océan Indien et les Caraïbes. Alors, pour un bailleur bilatéral comme l'Agence française de développement ou comme pour les bailleurs de fonds multilatéraux ou régionaux, en fait, le premier constat que l'on peut faire, c'est que la réponse des bailleurs de fonds s'adresse pour le moment essentiellement aux États et pas aux collectivités locales. Alors pourquoi? À mon avis, 3 raisons essentielles. D'abord, c'est que la compétence sanitaire est majoritairement centralisée dans tous les pays développement ou les pays émergents. Deuxièmement, la résolution de cette crise, elle fait d'abord l'objet d'un dialogue politique entre banques centrales, institutions financières de développement et les États. Enfin, les collectivités locales disposent en général de ressources financières qui sont assises sur ce qu'on appelle des impôts de stock, et notamment, je pense à l'impôt foncier, et bénéficient également de dotations d'État qui sont pour l'instant pas remises en question, alors que comparativement, les États, eux, s'appuient davantage sur des impôts reposant sur les flux de richesses, sur les personnes et sur les entreprises. Donc voilà la raison un petit peu pour laquelle, dans l'actualité, vous avez pu voir que la réponse des bailleurs de fonds aujourd'hui s'adresse d'abord aux États. Et pour autant, et ça c'est l'expérience nous estimons que les collectivités locales ne sont pas suffisamment prises en compte. Elles ont un vrai besoin financier parce qu'elles sont touchées à plusieurs titres et les exemples précédents l'ont mis en évidence. Les collectivités locales répondent d'abord aux besoins de proximité des populations. C'est vite les fournitures médicales d'urgence, les appuis locaux aux structures de santé, l'éducation primaire, secondaire à organiser, les transports, etc. Donc elles font face à des dépenses vraiment exceptionnelles. Cette crise du Covid, avec le phénomène du confinement, confinement, elle conduit à la fermeture d'équipements publics. Et donc, il y a une perte aussi de produits d'exploitation sur les équipements culturels, sportifs, les transports publics, les redevances des marchés, les droits de place aussi, ou les parkings. Et de façon plus globale, cette crise, elle renforce les inégalités sociales et elle accentue les difficultés des populations les plus fragiles. Pour les populations les plus fragiles, il devient de plus en plus difficile de payer les loyers quand on est dans les logements publics et de payer les factures pour l'accès aux services essentiels, l'eau, l'assainissement, les déchets, l'électricité, etc. Donc, et de surcroît, ce que l'on peut observer dans plusieurs pays du monde, c'est que les collectivités locales qui sont déjà frappées par cette augmentation des dépenses, elles sont en plus sollicitées par les États pour participer à des fonds de soutien aux entreprises et aux commerces locaux. Et donc, à court terme, ce que l'on observe déjà dans notre, je dirais, au travers des partenaires de l'Agence française de développement, c'est que les collectivités enregistrent une diminution importante de leurs recettes courantes et font face à une augmentation exceptionnelle de leurs charges. Donc, c'est un déséquilibre croissant en termes de trésorerie qui ne peut être comblé que par des arbitrages sur d'autres dépenses, le recours au fonds de roulement, c'est-à-dire en fait le capital créé par l'exercice des années antérieures, ou la capacité à mobiliser des recettes, des ressources externes, alors soit des subventions exceptionnelles de l'État, c'est le cas en France qui le met en place, ou des prêts de court terme des banques locales. Donc pour nous, un premier élément de réponse de la part des bailleurs de fonds est d'assurer aux collectivités locales l'accès à des ressources financières pour répondre à des besoins de court terme. Alors, il y a deux axes possibles pour réaliser ça. C'est ce que l'on va faire, par exemple, en Colombie, à travers Findeter, qui est une structure qui prête aux collectivités locales. C'est qu'on va lui apporter des ressources financières pour qu'elle puisse financer qu'elle puisse financer les besoins de court terme, les besoins de trésorerie des collectivités locales, notamment des municipalités dites secondaires en Colombie. Deuxième axe possible de cette première type d'aide, c'est d'apporter des ressources financières aux États pour renforcer la décentralisation financière et notamment garantir que l'État ne va pas réduire les dotations, les transferts de l'État aux collectivités locales, pour que les collectivités locales puissent s'assurer que leur structure budgétaire, leurs recettes budgétaires soient relativement solides et assurées pour l'avenir. Ensuite, à moyen long terme, les collectivités locales, après cette crise, vont être des acteurs essentiels pour contribuer au redémarrage de l'activité économique, c'est-à-dire à la création d'emplois, de valeur. Et elles vont devoir renforcer leur capacité d'investissement. Et au regard des grands enseignements qu'on va tirer de cette crise, et les témoignages précédents l'ont mis en évidence, cet effort va se doubler dans beaucoup de pays d'un objectif d'innovation environnementale et sociale pour que l'investissement réalisé permette aux collectivités locales d'être moins vulnérables face aux grands défis planétaires, c'est-à-dire la résilience climatique et le risque de catastrophes, les crises sanitaires, les catastrophes naturelles. Et c'est ici que les bailleurs de fonds devront être présents, et en tout cas, nous, c'est ce que nous allons souhaiter mettre en place pour accompagner la résilience des territoires. Et là, on peut cumuler une série d'approches. D'abord, il faut accompagner davantage les collectivités locales dans le renforcement de leur autonomie financière, notamment via les ressources fiscales. Et je m'appuie complètement sur le discours de David Jackson tout à l'heure sur le fait d'avoir des ressources fiscales, de retrouver un espace fiscal ici, et des ressources fiscales propres, c'est-à-dire sur lesquelles vraiment les collectivités locales ont la pleine souveraineté en termes de décision sur les bases, la définition des bases d'imposition et le niveau de taxation. Deuxième type d'approche, c'est d'accompagner les collectivités locales dans le financement de leur agenda climat et résilience, notamment sur l'autonomie alimentaire,
1
les
minute to wrap
solutions
up.
basées sur les solutions basées sur la nature, la mise en place d'une fiscalité verte et le recours aux solutions numériques. Le numérique risque d'être un élément très important, je dirais, pour arriver à mieux gérer les villes dans le futur. Troisième dispositif, c'est renforcer le dialogue État-collectivité locale sur cet agenda climat et résilience. Je crois qu'il est grand temps maintenant, quand on regarde cette crise sanitaire ici, de montrer que les collectivités locales participent pleinement aux atteintes des objectifs climat des États. Et il faut offrir aux collectivités locales des outils de péréquation financière qui soient en phase avec leur propre vulnérabilité. Et enfin, dernier dispositif, et je crois que là, c'est sur le modèle un petit peu de ce que met en place la Banque mondiale, c'est introduire des dispositifs contingence au sein des financements des bailleurs de fonds, c'est-à-dire une composante spécifique qui va être dédiée à la gestion de catastrophes comme une catastrophe sanitaire, qui va être en mesure de capter l'ensemble des fonds non décaissés sur un financement d'un programme d'investissement lorsque la catastrophe survient et que la collectivité locale en fait la demande. Ça permettra ici d'orienter très rapidement des fonds pour aider une collectivité locale dès qu'elle rencontre une catastrophe et dès qu'elle le demande, et en évitant ici d'aider l'instruction d'un nouveau financement. Voilà. Plus globalement, moi, je crois que cette crise du Covid, il y a les termes d'urgence d'abord, réponse d'urgence, mais il y a ensuite une formidable opportunité pour repenser, réorienter les relations de l'État central avec les collectivités locales vers une double forme de coopération, coopération État-collectivité locale et une coopération inter-collectivité locale. Et on en a parlé tout à l'heure, des fonds de coopération, des fonds de solidarité locale entre différents échelons de collectivités. Je vous remercie.
Merci, merci, Frédéric. Music to our ears, and but as I was listening to you, I was wondering some of these things we've been proposing for a very long time, and why don't we manage to pull it together? And maybe visualizing the implications of all of this through this important universal crisis that we're going through might help us convince people. Let us see whether that works. In any case, we are taking notes of all of these measures, and we will make sure that in our guiding notes this appears, and that we continue to work with you. I'm going now to give the floor to a colleague from the World Bank, Roland White, the Global Lead for Municipal Finance, Governance and Management. And to you, a little bit of that question. Member states, national governments very often look at local financing with great difficulty, and they have doubts about how reliable they are in the return of investment and paying back credits. Do you think this is going to change, and how do you see the mechanisms at the World Bank evolving? The floor is yours, colleague. I don't see you either. Roland, are you with us? No? Okay. I had thought I had seen him. Let's go to the next speaker then. That would be Laureline Pla, Investment and Innovative Financing Unit of DG DEFCO, European Commission, a very important partner for us, working with local governments. Laureline, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, and we can see you too. So the floor is yours, and please share with us whether you think that some of your investment is going to be transformed through this crisis.
Yes, so I would like to speak today about the external investment plan that the European Commission is putting in place. So it's an initiative that has been launched in 2017 with the objective of increasing and attracting investments towards countries in Africa and in the European neighborhood. And so it's a very large plan under which we have three pillars. The first is the European Fund for Sustainable Development. The second is technical assistance, and then the third is policy dialogue to improve investment climate. So today I want to focus on the EFSD, the European Fund for Sustainable Development, which we are currently using in order to address these needs that we see in local governments having extremely important financial needs. And so we are using this guarantee fund in order to address these needs, working with implementing partners. So for this guarantee fund, we have 1.5 billion euros that we use in order to attract more investment towards the countries that I've mentioned. And we work for that purpose with national financial institutions from the European countries, but also with international development banks that we use in order to channel risk capital or offer guarantees through these institutions. So in the context of the COVID-19 crisis, what we have done is that we have reoriented and accelerated our guarantee programs in order to have a more impactful response and to be faster. and we have refocused them on two larger topics. The first is the health sector, local currency financing, and MSMEs. And the second is sustainable cities and renewable energy support. So today I will focus mostly on sustainable cities because that's the topic that matters for us. And in that topic, we have 4 guarantee programs. One with the Spanish Agency for Cooperation and Development, AECID, one with Agence Française de Développement, which we just heard, one with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and one with the European Investment Bank. And because we don't have much time, I wanted to focus on the program that we have with Agence Française de Développement, which is called CITIRIS, and which purpose is to really increase the financing from local financial institutions towards local governments in both Africa and countries neighboring Europe. And this is done through a partial risk guarantee that is extended by Agence Française de Développement with a counter guarantee from the European Commission, and which purpose is really to enable local financial institutions to improve their knowledge of local governments, and also to provide them to enable them to lend to these local governments, and on the conditions that are suitable for their needs, with longer maturities. And yes, so that's mainly the program that I wanted to present. I have some of my colleagues that are connected. I don't know if we have some time to allow them to also speak, or if we should wrap up for now.
I mean, we can give them two more minutes. If they are in line, you've been very efficient with your time. So happy to hear other inputs from the European Commission. Are they there? You will need to be fast.
Yes.
Konstantinos.
Yes, certainly.
There you are. So 3 minutes for you, Konstantinos.
I'll do my best, even less. Another program that is currently active and ongoing is called RESIDE, Resilient City Development. This one is implemented via AECID, the Spanish Development Agency, in collaboration with the World Bank. It's again a guarantee program which helps cities to develop public-private partnerships and lower the risk for private investors in that type of structures. Again, targeting the financing of urban infrastructure in Africa and the European neighborhood. It focuses on energy efficiency, environment, public transport, water supply, sanitation, and solid waste management. Again, the idea of having this approach is to enable private sector financiers to access that type of investments, and the operating premise behind that the implementation of this fund, the European Fund for Sustainable Development, is to try to prove to the world that the actual risk in that type of investments is far less than the perceived risk. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I think one issue that we deal with sometimes is also informing the broad base of local and regional governments about the instruments that are out there as well. I think we need to do a better job on that. We are doing our best. But I also think we need a stronger dialogue on the conditions for some of them to access these mechanisms. So thank you very much for the introduction to this, and we will make sure that we follow up. Our membership has access to that, to document it as well as possible. So I'm going now to a different type of partner, but also very critical in these times where things are not planned and you need to react very fast and be flexible. The role of foundations of the philanthropies are extremely important, and I'm very happy to have with us a representative of the Rockefeller Foundation, Elizabeth Yee, Chief of Staff of the President's Office. Elizabeth, how are you dealing with this crisis? Because I can think it must have shaken you as much as it has shaken a network like United Cities and local government. So where is your thinking going in terms of financial instruments?
Absolutely, and thank you to UCLG, Metropolis, and UN Habitat for having me and inviting Rockefeller Foundation to this conversation. I know that our efforts as an institution are global, but in conversation with Jean-Francois, it sounds like we want to focus US. So I will talk about the United States and what we're seeing here in particular. And I think it's a really interesting dichotomy to be here and to see how much of a spotlight this pandemic has put on some of the key structural challenges that we have in the US and where we have really fallen short in terms of investing in data and public health, and how many of our communities here really lack the resources and technologies to actually track and mitigate and overcome this disease. And so for us, we've committed $50 million over the next 2 years to actually end this fight, not just in the US, but globally. And we're working with our communities that we serve in Asia, Africa, and the US to really support them, both immediately, but also set up the institutions that they need and the capacity that they need to get back to work and to build a better tomorrow. So our work on COVID, just to give you a bit of background, there's sort of 4 pillars that we've developed in response to what we've been hearing. So first is around preventing infections and future crises by increasing testing, access to equipment, and data-driven decision-making tools. The second pillar is ensuring that vulnerable communities around the world are more food secure, because as we're seeing, there's a huge hunger crisis emerging, and that feels like an urgent issue that is coming out of this, as well as the economic challenges that are associated. And then the third, which is very US specific, is focusing on low-wage workers in the United States. We've got millions and millions of families here who don't have access to benefits and stable livelihoods. And for us, that's a huge challenge that we want to address, because we want to improve their today and their future economic outlook. And then lastly, because we have offices around the world, we want to make sure our host communities in Bangkok, in Bellagio, Italy, Washington, D.C., Nairobi, Kenya, and New York City are protected. And so we're working with them and their local leaders to figure out how to do that. But specifically on the U.S., I mean, we've seen jobless claims here hit 22 million over the past 4 weeks, and we've basically erased all the gains we've ever had since the Great Recession. And for us, it's a scary thing to see how much our safety net has been exposed. And for about 40% of the U.S. population doesn't even have $400 to address this emergency, and we've got 1 in 5 kids going hungry. So in response to that, we just released something called the Rockefeller Foundation National Testing Strategy this Tuesday, because for us, we felt that the only safe way to get back to work was to test people. And I know we all agree here on this phone call that we've got to restart our economies. And so the only way to do this from our perspective is to do massive wide-scale testing. And what we're proposing for the US is 30 million tests per week achieved by the next 6 months. And we need to do that because this shutdown is costing us $350 million a month. And so the cost of rolling out tests will be far less. So there's 3 pillars to this. First is to launch this testing. And in terms of finance, one of the things that we're seeing is the breakdown in the supply chain in terms of scaling tests. And so what we're building out right now is a financial guarantee or a financial structure that will enable the supply chain to be addressed and these problems to be addressed, so that local communities can actually access tests and get them. We're also looking at trying to figure out how to support more laboratories running these tests. We've got a number of university labs who are needing support and resourcing to be able to stand up that testing. And we think that by increasing their lab capacity, we can get from 1 million to 3 million tests within the next 8 weeks or so. And then we're also building out a public-private testing technology accelerator, just because we know that both PCR tests are important, but we also need to make significant advances in serology testing in order to ensure we understand which populations are immune and which aren't. And so that would be a core part of getting our testing in capacity in the US in particular up to the level that we need to in order to safely open the economy. The second pillar, which I know people have talked about in different capacities, we've got a number of people who've come home and need jobs. And so for us, we're working with a couple of communities in the US to stand up a community healthcare corps and how we, and figure out how we can redeploy those people to serve public health departments and figure out how they can be trained for both careers in public health, but also to most immediately address the testing capacity that we need to scale. And then we're also working with some private sector enterprises in terms of figuring out how we build out the data systems in the US to allow for better tracking and prediction. And further on that, that is where we're also spending a lot of time trying to learn so that ultimately these solutions can be scaled. We would like to try to create a data commons and digital platform that aggregates both testing data and also data from the hospitals so we understand where those hotspots are and be able to protect our people better. And ultimately what we'd like to do is try this out in our current communities, but we're also hearing that from our African grantees as well as our colleagues in Asia, that it is critical that we roll this out elsewhere. So we're kind of using our local communities here as our guinea pigs to figure out how we do this well and create a strong blueprint that brings in finance, that brings in the communities and other private sector actors to be able to create a plan and a blueprint that we can roll out across the world and both stop this virus, but also enable us to protect our communities for the future. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Liz. And I really hope that that you can get inspiration from sessions like this and from dialogue with the networks of cities around the world to see how we could scale up some of that support. I think today we have heard that there is no thinkable world in the aftermath where we would have local governments lacking finance. If that happens, that is a true global universal debacle. And we need to make sure that we give the appropriate response. Now from our side, and our colleagues from UN Habitat will be doing the wrap up, I would just want to take 2 minutes to display the kind of political call that our political leadership, mayors and councillors from around the world are going to be doing. And we've just adopted a decalogue of measures and areas that we think should be addressed. And one of them is, of course, financial packages during the crisis and for the reconstruction. So we are urging our international partners to ensure that there is direct and immediate support to local and regional governments because of many of the arguments that are being made during this session. We need to rebuild, we need to rethink, and that can only be done within the framework of service provision. The other thing that we would like to do within the framework of the global coalition that UNCDF, UCLG in collaboration with FMDB have put together, our Malaga coalition, is to continue the dialogue with the national governments and the international community. National governments will all need to understand how urgent it is that they have a very serious discussion on fiscal transfers. And we will, these will need to be repurposed and they will need to be accelerated and they will need to grow in one way or the other. And so we will ensure that we keep that conversation going. It will be a very important part of the work ahead. We will also need to do a call that we have been doing for a very long time, and the governor of Antioquia was making a reference to a true international big instrument that will ensure that there is access to international funding by local authorities in the true dimension that this urbanized era demands, and more so in the urbanized era post-COVID. And we are struggling with the language of that. And I was reading the speaking points that my colleagues shared with me, and they are talking about mechanisms and instruments. And I think that what our political leadership is asking for is a true international fund for urban infrastructure, and that is soft and hard infrastructure for public service provision. At local level. It is very, very urgent to do this. And if we don't do that, a lot of the things that we have been discussing today, how local governments will play a very strong role in the social crisis that is already a fact following the sanitary crisis, will be impossible to overcome. And so we need to keep having this conversation. Call it international municipal fund, call it international funding platform, call it whatever you want. But those international funds will need to play a strong role, not only because of solidarity, but simply because the type of multilateral system that we will need for the aftermath is a different one, is a more powerful one, and it needs to be built from the base, from local governments up. So those are some of the measures that we are going to be working towards, together with trying to adapt some of the mechanisms that we already have, like the International Municipal Investment Fund, and see whether our pipelines can address some of the most urgent COVID necessities. You've got the commitment from the United Cities and Local Governments family to continue working with us, the commitment from our partners. We'll keep working hard on it. We need you all on board. We need you to push your national governments. We need us to be bold in the conversations with private sector and international partners. And I do have a lot of hope that we are going to be better after this crisis. I don't know if our colleague Marco Camilla from UN Habitat will want to give some closing remarks or not. I didn't have clarity here in the chat from colleagues. Marco, you are there. You have been working with us for a very long time. If you don't want to say anything, that's okay. But I want to acknowledge the kind of work that you are doing as a trusted partner of United Cities and Local Governments, Metropolis, and many other city networks. Okay, it looks like Marco is quiet and happy with what we have discussed. Thank you so much, colleagues, for being with us. We've had, at our peak, we've had 274 participants. We still have 214 participants. I hope that we have all learned enough to have a positive feeling about the future. So keep calm, keep healthy, and keep creative.